Holy Jesus and by God, this article is really bad. Let's say it's an article called 5 Myths of Digital Photography. Some people emailed me the link to this. And it's on a website. Let's see, what would I call the website? Let's just say it sounds like Peddle Your Pixels. Yeah, Peddle Your Pixels. That sounds like a good... Yeah, Peddle Your Pixels. Yeah, okay. Yeah. People are like, is this article right? This doesn't seem right. And I'm like, you're right, it's wrong. So it says the 5 Myths of Digital Photography. And each one of the things stated in the 5 myths are wrong. Some of the statements are correct, like ISO does not change sensitivity. That is correct. But the article, and it's not that long, is so full of glaring errors on this particular website that we have to correct the errors. You have to be a fact checker here. So yeah, this is definitely wrong. It's like, why did you post an article like this without checking the facts, girlfriend? You know. Statement number 1: changing the ISO on a digital camera does not make the sensor more sensitive, which is true. And it's meaning capture photons, and they go, capture photons? Are you kidding me? A sensor in your camera is no different than the solar cell on the roof of your house if you have one. The only difference is it's a lot smaller, and it has a discriminator for RGB, red, green, blue, and it's a lot more advanced and a lot. So there is, you know, a camera does not capture photons. Okay, light is an electrical circuit. Your sensor works off of electrical impulses of varying frequencies of visible light. That's not too important. That's just typical idiot nonsense, BS, atomism, you know. We live in a cult of atomism. We think everything in the universe is a bunch of atoms. That's not that important one. Here's the second one. Higher bit depth. Well, this one is really wrong. They're claiming that this is a myth, but it's not a myth. Higher bit depth, meaning like 14-bit or 16-bit. Higher bit depth means better quality images. They're saying that that's a myth, but it's not a myth, baby. You know, you test it yourself. Bit depth is related to the resolution of the analog to digital to AD converter in your camera. The higher bit depth, the more information a pixel can be chopped into increasingly smaller units, leading to smoother tonal transitions. They're calling that a myth. It's not a myth. As somebody with a discriminating eye, not like a wino, the alcoholic. You know, you give a wino, it's like, you know, what about this wine and, you know, this rot gut wine versus this $3,000 bottle? Well, I like that one better. It's got more alcohol in it. So you can't ask an idiot to actually verify. I shouldn't say idiot. Okay, I meant idiot. Verify 14-bit depth versus, or 12-bit versus 14, or 14 versus 16-bit depth. Wrong. There is better quality of the image in there, especially when you render it into black and white, because the intertonal details, i.e. micro contrast, show up in the 16-bit versus the 14-bit, or the 14-bit versus the 12-bit. So they're absolutely wrong on that one. Here's another one. They talk about signal-to-noise ratio, and they quote somebody from a Diaper and Pee review. Once captured, the signal-to-noise ratio of any tone can't be improved upon. It gets worse as electronic noise is added. But if you try boosting or pushing the signal, you end up boosting the noise by the same amount. Not true. You do boost the noise, but it is a hardcore fact that noise has certain frequencies. Okay? But noise with the same amount and the ratio stays the same. It does not stay the same. SNR firmware algorithms have this is the reason why tiny chips in little security cameras, I mean teeny little bastards, and most security cameras are very, very important in dark, nasty ass, low light, dank areas. They've gotten worlds better. And it's not because the SNR is because not because of the actual captured SNR, but due to the signal-to-noise ratio firmware that is applied to that signal. This is why, like for example, when I was showing you a demo of 40,000 ISO on the Nikon D500, I couldn't see what the hell, I couldn't see nothing. Couldn't even see my hand in front of my face. But the picture came out plenty good enough to print out an 8x10. because there are actual, this is not my belief, this is a hardcore fact. SNR signal processing has gotten so good now that insane ISOs, insane high ISOs, look pretty damn good. It is true. So they're flat out wrong. And the guy that wrote this for Diaper and Pee Review, Richard B. I'm just going to say Richard, well, first three letters are Butt. So let's say Dick Butt. So Richard B. So Richard is Dick and Butt. So Dick Butt. There we go. This is not true. This is not true. It gets worse as electronic noise is added, but if you're boosting or pushing the signal, you end up boosting the noise by the same amount as the ratio. And it's by the same amount and the ratio stays the same. And that's not until it's processed. You see, a camera is not an image sensor. A camera is not a sensor. It is an image processor. So that is completely incorrect. You have 80 converters, the processor, the SNR firmware, which actually processes out the noise as much as it can, depending on the design and the algorithms. So that's wrong. Here's other stupidity that they state in this article on Pedal Your Pixel. Sensor affects the depth of field with larger sensors, yielding shallower depth of field. So to get the same depth of field as a 200mm 5.6, they're quoting the other guy that does all these incorrect. He's always talking about the math, but a lot of his math is wrong. Let me tell you what, depth of field does not change with larger sensors. You see, this lens, excuse me, allergies, like every lens on Earth, it craps the same light out of its little tiny butt element, and it does not give a damn or a hoot in hell what size the sensor is underneath it, whether it's micro four thirds, APS-C, or full frame. The image, the depth of field stays the same. What changes is the crop, and the crop will change the perspective of the perceived depth of field because it has a different crop. Every lens on Earth and every camera works the same. The lens does not change a damn thing relative to, if I set this at f2.8 or f60, the depth of field stays the same. Depth of field does not change. See, they're, you know, no, this is wrong. Here's their other stupid statement. Phase 1's 100 megapixel back has modestly sized pixels, but a gigantic sensor it does. The Phase 1 sensor is gigantic, which captures more light, yielding higher image quality. Let me tell you what, girlfriend. Exposure is per unit area, not total area. A larger sensor doesn't have to be magnified as much. If you've got a huge ass sensor here, and you want to make yourself a 20 by 30 print, that big ass sensor and the image captured from same, it doesn't have to be magnified as much. Larger sensors don't gather more light. Well, sure they do. They're larger sensors. That's not exposure. Exposure is per unit area. As I made a really goofy analogy like a month ago, it's like when you're like in the tiny island, the tiny state of Rhode Island, and the sun is shining down on your bald head, and you cross the border into Pennsylvania, the exposure is the same. You know, it's like I'm crossing the border to Pennsylvania. The same light is falling on your damn head. It doesn't matter the fact that the state is huge by comparison compared to Rhode Island. Or Rhode Island to Connecticut. Rhode Island in any damn state, right? Rhode Island's tiny. It's that if you want to make a 20 by 30 print from the state of Pennsylvania or Connecticut, it don't have to be enlarged as much. Okay, so the larger sensors do not gather more light, i.e. exposure. A larger sensor doesn't have to be magnified as much. Larger sensors don't capture more light. They capture a bigger field of view. You do have to talk about photosight and pixel pitch too, but we also have to then talk about the fact that, and micro lens design, but a camera is not a sensor. It is an image processor. Camera is not a sensor, okay? A camera is not a sensor. 80 converters, SNR firmware, the buffering, the processor, 16-bit, 14-bit. or 12-bit and 14-bit. So these 5 myths of digital photography, they meant, wow, really? Well, congratulations on that article, because it's a gigantic heap of failure. Bye.